I love smoking weed and other drugs using a water pipe, or bong as the kids call it these days, but I'm old and my throat hurts from the hot, dry drug smoke as I suck it through the suck tube of the bong. I wish there was something that could make it less harsh on my old man throat. Also, my penis doesn't work very well. It's small and crooked and floppy. Luckily for me, there's a new product that helps me with my sore drug throat and loose floppy wiener. Introducing the dill pill. This delicious pill is filled with all sorts of ingredients that will help your body and penis. Simply pack the pill into the bowl of your favorite bong, light it up, and take a rip. This pill is coated with a layer of soothing egg whites, which coat your throat and lungs in a gentle balm, which ensures you won't cough or have a scratchy throat. The inside of the pill, which is activated by smoking it, contains a potent penis-enriching drug that not only makes your rod stand at attention for hours on end, but also allows you to blast unbelievable amounts of goop. It increases your load size up to 5,000%. If you're already a heavy sprayer like me, this means that you can find yourself unleashing nearly a quart of goop during your lovemaking. One of the many side effects of the dill pill is that it makes your semen super flavorful. It gives it a nice herbaceous dill flavor. It's like drinking ranch dressing or something. So feel free to pump gobs of this stuff down your own throat. Don't waste it, taste it. That's what I always say, and that's what I always do. Are you still listening to this ad? Have you turned this off yet? Are you listening to this in the car with your family? If so, you are out of your mind. You should be in jail. Anyway, you could get the dill pill from any unreputable gas station or corner store. Smoke a few of these bad boys and you'll be rock hard and your throat will feel great. Have a puff passionate night of unprotected sex with your spouse, loved one, or a complete stranger. I don't care. As long as you're both consenting adults, do whatever you want. I'm not going to judge, but you know who is going to judge you? Our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ.
You have successfully connected to the Secret Society of Fly Tires podcast.
Welcome to the Secret Society of Fly Tires show to all the many listeners of this podcast. I'm your host, Manny Ramirez. The challenges of insomnia and the decision to quit smoking have significantly enhanced the quality of my podcast content. These personal experiences have provided me with a unique perspective and a deeper level of introspection, which I have channeled into my many great discussions with the biggest names in the industry. As a result, I've been able to engage my audience more effectively, sharing insights that resonate on a personal level while also maintaining a focus on the topics at hand. In this particular episode, I delve into the captivating world of fly fishing on the East Walker River. This location, known for its stunning natural beauty and abundant fish populations, serves as the perfect backdrop for exploring the nuances of this beloved pastime. I aim to provide listeners with not only practical tips and techniques for successful fly fishing, but also an appreciation for the serene environment that the East Walker River offers. Throughout the episode, I share personal anecdotes and reflections that highlight the therapeutic aspects of fly fishing, particularly in light of my recent lifestyle changes. The act of casting a line into the tranquil waters serves as a metaphor for finding peace amidst life's challenges. By intertwining my journey with the art of fly fishing, I hope to inspire my audience to embrace their own passions and find solace in nature, ultimately enriching their lives in meaningful ways. Sorry, I should stop right there.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I tried to outsource the monologue for this episode to an AI software company that spammed me with a deal that I couldn't refuse. But I don't think this is going to work. Besides, the contract that I signed was only to use 3 paragraphs of AI text per episode, so I hit my quota and I'll receive the payout that was agreed upon. It's the only way I'm making money on this show, okay? Get off my back. What's a scrappy podcast host supposed to do when faced with this kind of situation? Just refuse the help? What's that you say? Launch an actual store where I sell things people might buy? I'd rather just talk about the possibility of that store and make dumb jokes about the products that might someday lie within it than actually launch a real store. Anyways, desperate times call for artificial measures. Everyone is using AI these days and everyone is getting rich off it, so I had to give it a shot. Look at The Worm. He released a full country album and now it's being nominated for a Grammy, and he's about to perform the tracks live on tour, opening for Luke Combs and Morgan Wallen, and I'm sitting here collecting dust and not smoking cigarettes. In case you missed it, here's some information on pre-ordering a copy.
Worm Tutorial presents Country Onions, the world's greatest compilation of country music featuring over 20 songs by your favorite artists. With over 90 minutes of music, Country Onions is sure to please any country and western fan, but don't take my word for it. Open your ears, you dumb idiot. Listen to these beautiful songs by country luminaries like Gort Hamilton, Pig Newton, Annie Triangle, and Oil Salad Dressing. Country Onions include such timeless country hits as Lizard Meat Blues,
I eat little wet lizards, I eat them all up. When my mouth is full, I put them in my butt. I'm hungry for meat that comes from reptiles. With a lizard in my mouth, I'm nothing but smiles.
Stink Prison,
My penis is rotten. It smells like a coffin. Because of this, I don't use it often. My penis is rotten. It smells like a coffin. It smells like a horse. It tastes like a corpse.
Get your copy of Country Onions today on compact disc, vinyl album, cassette tape, mini disc, Edison cylinder, and MP3 for the unhinged price of just $18.99, $99.95. Send check or money order to me. You have to find me first and hand me the money to get the album. That's how this works, so start digging, idiot. Country Onions is a compilation album you can be proud to own. Get yours today. Supplies are limited and won't last long. These babies are selling like hotcakes. No, you know what? They're selling better than that. These babies are selling like onions. Country Onions.
This episode is really about the East Walker River, though. That wasn't made up by the AI software. And I have a great guest, Todd Pond.
And why is the carpet all wet, Todd?
I don't know, Margot.
He's a dedicated, hardcore fly angler, and he's not afraid to drive 5+ hours for a day trip. I usually make excuses to get out of that kind of thing for some stupid reason. I've fished with Todd. I'm pretty sure I told you a story about fishing the Pitt River and swinging up a nice rainbow on a graboid leech, and on that day, I met Todd Pond through our mutual friend Steve. Steve is my good pal that I keep mentioning broke a rod tip in his teeth on the McLeod River once. And now Todd and I are friends too, and we both belong to the same fly club, and he's a guest on this here podcast now too. He has put in many hours on the East Walker and is a treasure trove of knowledge on it. So much so that I might not talk about the river at all in my monologue because Todd tells it better than I can. My strength is talking about dog shit nonsense, so that's the zone that I'm staying in for this episode. We'll see if I can drum up enough buffoonery to fill the space, but that's my goal.
I want you to have me in your head asking you, how bad do you want it? Your goal is worth it, and you are worth it.
Like most of the bodies of water that I talk about on this show, I haven't been to the East Walker River yet. I have put plans together on a few occasions that didn't pan out, and it's really not that far from me, so it'll happen. And when I go, you better believe I'm going to go with Todd. You'll find out soon enough that he knows what's up with the East Walker and the fish that call it home. But first, I got a bunch of dumbass rambling to do. That's a big part of my brand that I've worked so hard to develop here at the SSFT corporate offices. Speaking of brands, I mentioned just a few moments ago that I am still a somewhat proud ex-smoker. But holy shit, have I ever been more tempted to pick the habit back up. Not due to the stress that used to be washed away with every delicious smoky inhale, not because of the fat that is starting to materialize onto my skeleton frame due to eating even more snacks than usual to fill the void of not smoking every hour, but because my good buddy Kyle shared a Parliament brand cigarettes commercial with me that was so good I seriously almost couldn't resist the temptation. It's what I believe was a Japanese Parliament ad from the 90s starring Charlie Sheen.
Everybody's on me about fucking smoking. He's like, smoking is like, you're gonna die from fucking smoking. It's like...
I'd play it for you right now, but it's mostly free of dialogue because the actors paint such a great picture they don't need to speak. It's got drama, mystery, beautiful imagery, hot Asian babes, and throughout the whole production, Charlie is puffing on a delicious Parliament cigarette with the recessed filter that you know he was allegedly tooting powdered drugs out of between shots, because that has to be why the recessed filter was invented, right?
So basically, all these fladio plants, clavglepal bluing.
Keith Richards didn't just find that feature out on his own. Rumor has it that he helped Parliament develop it. He craved nicotine and drugs all the time, but he also craved efficiency and needed a way to get more drugs and more cigarette smoke into his body quicker. So he wrote a letter to the Chief Creative Officer of Parliament with his genius idea of adding a drug inhaling device, or cavity, I guess it's not a device, to the filter of every cigarette, and here we are. So, less of a smoking update from me today and more of a history lesson.
Today we is chatting about history, innit? Because you better learn about it. When I was 14, I fingered this girl called Ruth Jonas, and she found out that me was letting people sniff me fingers for 10 pence, and she told me that I was history.
And, just to be clear, the commercial didn't win, and I didn't give in to temptation and run out to buy a pack of smokes. I'm still denying myself the pleasure. I have been known to be quickly tricked with a good commercial, too. You know I love commercials. If anything, I've made that painfully clear this season with the amount of fake ads that I punish you with every episode. I will admit that on one occasion when I was at home flipping through the channels when that was a thing people did, that I saw an ad for Chili's fajitas and got in the car and drove to Chili's right after that commercial ended.
Are you searching for the great fajita? Introducing Chili's sizzling new steak and portobello mushroom fajitas.
Fajitas.
I'm proud of myself too, because that Parliament ad was so good it almost got me. I always say that if you pay attention to this show, you will learn something. It might not be about tying flies or even fishing, but the nuggets are there for you. Today's lesson was about the power of marketing and the history of Parliament's recessed filter. Maybe I should actually talk about fishing now. No. Okay, maybe kinda. There was another interesting part of my first trip to the Pitt River when I met today's guest, Todd Pond, that didn't make it into the story I told on the previous episode. Actually, it goes right along with the marketing subject too, so what a great segue I just made. You guys probably don't know how fulfilling it is to make such a great segue. Anyway, Todd had brought his friend Morgan along with him that day on the pit, and Morgan would not stop talking about the new pair of waders that he was field testing. Todd, Steve, and I all thought he was full of shit until he pulled out a completely plain pair of gray waders without any logos on them and started strapping them on. Morgan kept dropping little tidbits about how these waders were a top secret project from one of the industry's top wader manufacturers, but he wasn't giving up any real details. We tried a couple times to ask him what the big deal was with them, and he just kept telling us, "Oh, you'll see, it's something we've all been waiting for." Our interest was piqued, but we were itching to get our lines in the water and decided to be patient. We all started walking down the short trail to the river at Pit 3 when he told us all to stop walking and look at him. So we stopped, kind of annoyed at this point, and he gestured down to his logoless gray crotch and said, "Watch this." And just as the words left his lips, a decently strong stream of urine started spraying out through the fabric, almost unobstructed. He launched right into his pitch about how he worked with Redacted to develop a brand new, semi-permeable membrane that can be layered within the Gore-Tex fabric of your waders that allows you to spray your piss out but doesn't let any moisture get sprayed in. He went on and on about how when he was just starting out fly fishing that he didn't know you weren't supposed to pee in your waders while out in the river. It was cold in the water and his pee warmed him up quick. Plus, it felt unnatural to him to be in the river without being wet. No one wanted to fish with him because he stunk like piss all the time, but Morgan couldn't change his ways. He was depressed and had nowhere to turn. So he emailed every wader manufacturer there was until finally Sims got back to him and agreed to help him develop this new line of waders meant to be pissed in. Unfortunately, you'll recall that Sims was purchased by a new parent company recently, and the new line of waders got lost in the shuffle, never to hit store shelves. The only one with a working pair is Todd's pal Morgan. That brings us to the end of this totally true and weird story about a group of dudes that enjoyed a day of fishing together on the Pitt River in beautiful Northern California. please excuse this brief interruption from one of our many proud sponsors.
You're hungry. You're starving. You want to eat something so badly. What are you going to eat? What's the one thing that is always good to eat no matter where you are or what you're doing? Why, food, of course. This episode of the Secret Society of Fly Tires is brought to you by food. I would have never thought that something as broad and general as food would be willing to sponsor an episode of this podcast, but a marketing executive from Food contacted me a few weeks ago and said that they were interested in giving us a bunch of money in exchange for me making an advertisement for food. I don't get it. I don't understand how that would benefit them at all. People already eat food every day. Why would they want to pay me to talk about how you should eat food? Food is the main thing that people eat. I say that it's the main thing because sometimes people eat things that aren't food. I probably shouldn't be talking about this in the middle of a commercial promoting the benefits and overall deliciousness of food, but I do know for a fact that some people eat stuff that isn't food. I knew a kid in elementary school who would eat rocks if somebody gave him $1. I never paid the fee myself because I'm not a millionaire who can afford such luxurious entertainment, but I knew many people who did, and that kid ate a bunch of rocks until he got really sick. I also knew somebody who would eat yogurt, and there's no way you can convince me that that's a food. Have you ever seen or smelled yogurt before? It's just rotten milk. That's not food. If you take a food and let it go bad, it's no longer a food. It's just spoiled. It's poison. Yogurt is not a food, and anybody who says otherwise is a liar. Anybody who eats yogurt on purpose and acts like it's normal should be in prison. Anyway, please eat food because, like I said earlier, this episode is brought to you by food. Food. It's like drinks, but it's chewier. They didn't ask me to come up with a slogan for food, but I just did, and it's a good one. They should start putting that on billboards. Food. It's like drinks, but chewier. If I had never eaten food before and I saw that on a billboard, I would definitely be interested. I would want to try some. I'd pull over and look up the nearest food. That's the power of a good slogan. It gets people interested to the point where they become blind to all else. It makes them crave whatever you're selling. It makes them hard and wet for your products. If you'd like to learn more about the secrets to marketing and advertising, please sign up for my 6-week webinar course. Just go to www.sellingstuffiseasyandfun.com and purchase a ticket for the course. Like I said, it's a 6-week live online course that I teach every year, and a lot of my past students have gone on to do some really great things. So please, sign up today. If you sign up in the next 4 minutes, I'll reduce the price to just $49.99, $99.99. Spaces are limited. Reserve yours today and become the marketing genius this world needs.
Do or don't piss in your waders. See if I care. You could also tape some kind of portable urinal onto the end of your dick if you really don't want to pull your waders down and piss on the side of the river. That might even make your tiny dick stretch out a little bit from the weight of the portable urinal hanging down. If you piss in it, even more weight to stretch you out. Sounds like a win-win situation to this podcast host.
What the hell are you talking about? Who are you talking to?
I am almost done with my 3rd page of nonsense. And I'm at 0 facts given about the East Walker River so far, so I'm happy to report that I'm sticking to my plan for this monologue. Just like I told you all that I'd quit smoking. I did it. I even did it earlier than I had hoped or planned or whatever. I was picturing celebrating my big milestone on the final episode of the season, but I quit early. I didn't want to think about it anymore. The idea of having to quit was enough of a burden on the electrified stress field that my body is constantly projecting. I don't have a good segue into this, but I know I have to talk a little bit about the famous ghost town of Bodie that's just a 30-minute drive from the Walker River Lodge in Bridgeport.
You know, the Eastern Sierra is literally one of the most spectacular scenic areas in California. And this drive up 395 is something. Our destination was 15 miles off the main highway, down a windy road that before long became a bumpy dirt road. We were heading for Bodie, an honest-to-goodness ghost town nestled in the Bodie Hills, over 8,000 feet above sea level.
First off, it gives me a great excuse to use some Point Break samples of Patrick Swayze as the badass surfer with the same name as the ghost town.
That's Bodhi. They call him Bodhisattva.
And you know I love paranormal lore, so this is too good to gloss over.
They only live to get radical.
For those that haven't been there like myself, let me read a quick history from visitmammoth.com. The history of Bodie is vibrant and colorful, and the town's legacy as a Wild West icon is everlasting. With a diverse population numbering close to 10,000 at the town's peak in 1880, industrious miners and successful businessmen rubbed shoulders with notorious gunfighters and nefarious gamblers.
Gunfighters and crime and all of that in Bodie.
From the tales of the initial discoverer, whose life ended tragically, to the development of electrically powered gold mines and vicious gunfights, the story of Bodie is sure to interest most of the men between the ages of 29 and 63 in the United States that enjoy this show.
It's a state of mind. It's that place where you lose yourself and you find yourself.
The birth of the town of Bodie began in summer of 1859, with 4 adventurous prospectors wandering the eastern Sierra foothills in the search of mineral wealth. Arriving from the western slopes via Sonora Pass, the group began exploring the canyons and hills north of Mono Lake. About 10 miles from Monoville, the group discovered a promising placer, or stream bed, showing of gold within a meadow surrounded by rolling hills of sagebrush. The men felt confident in their placer prospects, and they immediately built a small cabin next to Pearson Spring.
Now look at this building.
Right.
This thing is about ready to fall over.
Which is on the outskirts of the ghost town near the old cemetery. With winter approaching, the miners decided to spend the cold months in the nearby mining camp of Monoville and return to the mining claim in the spring. Without TikTok and stupid podcasts like this one, the discovery did not reach far and the deposit was almost forgotten. At this time, the massive mines of the Cornstalk Lode in Virginia City to the north were in full production, and the gold mines of Aurora to the east were rapidly developing, keeping thousands of miners employed. As those deposits were exhausted, miners began immigrating into the Bodie Hills, and the region rapidly exploded. This rapid growth brought an incredibly diverse population, which comprised a broad spectrum of culture, ethnicity, and notability into the Bodie Hills. As the people came in, the town began to evolve and several prominent neighborhoods became established.
This was never about money for us. It was about us against the system. That system that kills the human spirit.
To the east of Bodie, the mighty mines and mills pumped economic lifeblood into the town. In the center and south of town, a vibrant business district blossomed, flanked to the west by the well-kept homes of mine management and business owners. The northern end of town came to life in the evenings, as the dozens of saloons, gambling halls, taverns, brothels, and opium dens of the red light district in Chinatown beckoned miners with their expensive vices. Bodie quickly gained the reputation as a shooter's town due to the Wild West-style gunfights that often erupted during the height of the town's prominence. Badass. This is a movie. Should I get a cowboy hat before I go to Bodie? I have cow family, you know. I'm related to a card-carrying member of the Cowboy Hall of Fame, actually, and that isn't even a lie for once in my life. In 1881, the Bodie and Benton Railroad was formed, and although the 32-mile rail line never connected the towns of Bodie and Benton as intended, it did loop travelers right back to the opium dens and brothels, which everyone was thankful for. I'm kidding, but it did provide much-needed lumber to the mines from Mono Mills on the south side of Mono Lake. At its peak, between 1879 and 1881, Bodie's main street reached over a mile in length. During this time, Bodie had 2 churches, Catholic and Methodist, at least 2 newspapers, a telegraph station, post office, 22 operating mines, a house full of YouTube influencers, many large and very noisy stamp-style ore mills, multiple motels, a horse therapist, several general stores and mercantiles, stables, doctors and pharmacists, 2 rival psychic mediums, union halls, schools, breweries, a kava lounge, and several dozen saloons. Although it is difficult to accurately gauge the size of the town due to the transient nature of the region's population in the 1870s and the 1880s, Bodie was likely the 6th or 7th largest city in California at this time, because it ruled.
Did bad men come here to live?
Oh, of course.
Specifically?
Aside from the vast mineral wealth and the rough-and-tumble reputation of the town, Bodie's next claim to fame is the installation and operation of the world's first long-distance electrical transmission network. A kitchen fire in the summer of 1892 destroyed much of the town to the west of Main Street because literally everywhere burnt down in that era. I hope you're researching the various theories that converge to become the Tartaria conspiracy, because otherwise that comment won't be as much fun. The town was rebuilt, although the damage was done and several of the residents left. Tragedy struck Bodie again in the early summer of 1932 when most of the town burnt to the ground once more.
We've all heard of the 1871 Chicago fire, about how the cow tipped over the candle. Wait, Boston burned down a year later? Well, whatever, let's continue. What? You're telling me that Seattle burned down in 1889? New York had a great fire? In 1835. Pittsburgh had a great fire too? 1845? No way. Portland? 1866. San Francisco? 1851? Could be a coincidence, right? Dayton, 1882. St. Louis, Great Fire, 1849. Milwaukee, Great Fire, 1892. Charleston, 1861. Richmond, 1811.
This fire, which was accidentally started by a young boy playing with matches, sealed the fate of the once glorious mining town. Some drunk lady was making biscuits after a hard night at the saloon and started a kitchen fire, and then an idiot little kid followed up shortly to do it again, and they burnt the whole town down twice in a 50-year span. Shit like that always happens to the coolest places, though. Bodie was so badass and cool that it had to literally burn out fast.
I have something to say. It's better to burn out than to fade away.
After major mining ended in 1915 and small-scale mining efforts halted in the early 1950s, the remaining buildings slowly began to decay as residents left or passed on. Due to Bodie's remarkable ghost town-like remains and the value of the minerals mined from the surrounding hills, the town received a national landmark status in 1961. California adopted the Bodie State Historic Park in 1962, and it remains today preserved and maintained by the Bodie Foundation. The most ambitious of the four original prospectors was a former New Yorker by the name W.S. Bodie. W likely stood for Wakeman, not William. In the middle of the 19th century, Bodie sailed around the Horn of South Africa to California's gold fields. Don't tell me there's a more badass way to get to California, even now, especially now. After several meager years, Bodie and a team of 3 other prospectors decided to try their luck in the foothills of the Eastern Sierra, where they discovered gold near Mono Lake. Bodie is actually credited with initially discovering the gold in the stream bed in 1859, hence the town's name, whose spelling was later changed from the true spelling of Bodie with an EY to Bodie with an IE by either an illiterate sign painter or a merry prankster. Bodie's story, as is the case with many of the West's famous prospectors, does not end well. At the opposition of the other 2 partners, Bodie and another prospector by the name of Black Taylor decided to stay in a cabin over winter in order to work their deposit. Unprepared for the harsh winters, the 2 ran out of supplies by November and were forced to make the 10-mile trip to the nearby mining camp of Monoville. On the return trip, a fierce blizzard caused the 2 to become lost, and Bodie was unable to reach the cabin before succumbing to the winter storm. In the following spring, Taylor was able to find and bury the remains of Bodie near the location of his death. Almost 20 years later, residents of the now booming town of Bodie found the unmarked gravesite and moved the remains to the town's cemetery, where the bones of W.S. Bodie reside today. Bodie owes its existence to the area's unique and valuable geology. Similar to Nevada mining districts to the east, Bodie's precious metal deposits formed around 10 million years ago. Due to widespread tectonic extensional or pulling apart forces acting on the Earth's crust of eastern California and western Nevada, molten rock and superheated water reached the surface through conduits as explosive volcanoes or hot springs. These hydrothermal fluids contained gold and silver, and when these fluids cooled, the metals precipitated within the surrounding igneous rock. Geologists use the term epithermal mineralization to describe the near-surface emplacement of economic metals.
What is this idiot talking about? I thought this was a fishing show, or at least a show about what fishes like to eat. Why is he talking about this nonsense? This guy sounds like an idiot. This guy probably smells like an idiot. His butt stinks. That's what he should be talking about, how much his butt stinks. Then maybe I'd pay attention, but there's no way I'm paying attention to this drivel, this garbage. Idiot, dumb idiot.
90% of the gold and silver recovered was locked deep within quartz veins. These milky white quartz veins from inches in width to 20 feet in width often contained a variety of economically important minerals, including pyroaurite, tetrahedrite, pyrite, stephanite. Are these even real words? Native gold and native silver. Beneath the town of Bodie, it is estimated that miners excavated hundreds of miles of tunnels in search for valuable ore. These tunnels were accessed by vertical mine shafts, which had steam-driven elevators to transport ore to the surface and miners to the workings until they were eventually taken over by an ancient race of subsurface-dwelling reptilians. Experienced miners from the declining Virginia City and Aurora districts brought knowledge and efficiency to the Bodie district, making the workings more profitable for the owners of the mines. The district was incredibly lucrative, and many investors reaped the rewards from mining stocks and dividends. In 1888, California's state official mineralogist reported that the district had produced over $18 million in precious metals, which is just under $500 million today, adjusted for inflation.
Nowadays, when you visit Bodie, it's literally like stepping back in time to the gold rush days. A whole town frozen in time.
Today, over 100 of the original buildings line the dirt streets of the Bodie ghost town, including the old Miners Union Building, firehouse, jail, the massive Standard Mill, schoolhouse, a Methodist church, morgue, and several of the small homes. Overlooking the dusty roads of the once thriving Bodie, these buildings preserve the Wild West way of life, with many remaining as they were originally found over 60 years ago. 60 years ago doesn't seem that long ago to call it a ghost town, but whatever. The Miners Union Building is now a museum, which showcases artifacts from Bodie's past, and the Standard Mill has been partially restored. Daily tours of the relatively complete stamp mill facility are available throughout the summer for the nominal fee of $6.
But we're not here to look at the panoramic view of Bodie. We're here to visit, I guess, one of the most popular places on the tour, and that's the town cemetery.
One of the most popular attractions among visitors is the Bodie Cemetery, located at the end of a short footpath on the outskirts of town. Bodie was, and still is, known for having two cemeteries, one within the ornate cemetery fence and one outside of the fence known as the informal Boot Hill Cemetery. The plots inside of the cemetery fence were reserved as resting places for the respectable citizens of the town. The unmarked Boot Hill Outcast Cemetery was for the unsavory and derelict characters of Bodie, which were many in the town's heyday. Now, before I introduce you to my pal Todd, I'm going to tell you a little bit about some of the baddest of the bad that lie in Boot Hill Cemetery.
Now, who's buried here?
First one is the little-known Bone Meal Sawyer. Bone Meal was imprisoned twice for dynamiting cows during the night. While exploding the cattle was not illegal at the time, there was a strict noise ordinance in place which he clearly broke every time he blew up a heifer. There's also Jefferson Hogg, the infamous fraud rancher and horse thief. He would stick up stagecoaches and rob them of their horses. Then he would take them to a distant town and inject them with a potent but slow-acting poison, before finally selling the horses at a low price to the unsuspecting townsfolk. He could have easily just sold the horses in good health, but he didn't think that was evil enough, so that's why he would poison them first. Next on my list, Colonel Lacey Tigg. Lacey went insane from eating a bad corn cob and proceeded to march around Bodie nude until he found himself at the Boot Hill Cemetery, where he dug his own grave and paid a couple townsfolk to bury him alive. He thanked them for helping him finally get some sleep until he took his last breath.
Good night, sweet prince.
Even the most studied Bodie historians are usually unfamiliar with Scout Boyson. Scout was sentenced to hang until dead after getting so mad during a poker game that he defecated not only on all of the men he was gambling with, but also on one of the men's dogs, which was somehow more illegal than pooping on a man. Scout would have most likely survived that night if it wasn't for pooping on a dog. Last but not least, and one of the largest plots at Boot Hill, belongs to T. Hash Brown Williams. Hash Brown killed 2 sheriffs who were brothers, and then shaved his head and mustache and put on different clothes and assumed a different name and wooed the widows of the slain lawmen and somehow tricked both of them to marry him. Polygamy was still legal at the time, so this wasn't a problem. The thing that got old Hash Brown thrown in the clink and buried in the bad guy cemetery was that he insulted the then mayor of the town, which led to the mayor challenging him to an old-fashioned high-noon gunfight. Unfortunately, the night before the duel was scheduled to take place, the mayor fell ill and was too weak to attend the fight. According to county law at the time, if one of the duelists was unable to fight, they would instead elect their firstborn to serve in their place. In the mayor's fever-induced delirium, he agreed to this even though his firstborn was only 3 months old. When Hash Brown went to the appointed fighting location at the appointed time and saw the child writhing in the dirt and was told of the bizarre circumstances, he refused to fight the child, which was extremely illegal back then, so he was thrown into jail for life. Man, I, for one, am glad that this didn't end up with a baby actually participating in the duel and dying in a gunfight. It could have easily gone there, believe me. Some pretty wild stories, right? I encourage you to visit Bodie and go see the cemeteries if you head out to fish the East Walker. I want to mosey around that ghost town just as much as I want to rope in a hungry trout out of that river, so you better believe I'll be spending some time there when I finally get off my rump and make the drive. I did it. Almost 7 pages of 11-point font, and I barely talked about fly fishing or tying at all. I was gifted the opportunity to do so because my guest and friend Todd Pond was so generous with information during our interview. I think he might have actually prepared for the interview, which is probably a first. I learned a ton, and I got even more stoked than I already was to go out and fish the East Walker River. I especially want to go out and fish it at night with some mouse patterns. If you aren't familiar with Todd Pond, he's got a great YouTube channel called Flow Fly Fishing, which is kind of a tongue twister. Sheesh, I'll link to it in the show notes, okay? He posts sort of first-person style videos of his trips to all kinds of awesome locations, from the Fall River to the Pit River to Baum Lake and, of course, the East Walker. You might notice that he was kind enough to let me executive produce a few of these videos too, which helped promote the show early on like a real sweetheart. The guy loves to fish, and his excitement about the hobby is contagious. I hope you enjoy our chat. Todd.
Matt, how are you, man?
Hey, man. Good to see you, dude. So, hey, well, how was your trip? You just got back, yeah?
Yeah, it was pretty good. It was really crowded out there both days. You know, I couldn't believe it. I've never seen so many people on that river, but it's sort of the only game in town right now, pre-opening season.
Okay, yeah.
And with the closure up there, I guess, you know, what's happening is people aren't fishing in California side, so they're coming down into Nevada.
Okay, yeah. I had questions about the regulations there because when I was loosely plotting a trip out there a little while ago with Steve, and I think we were going at a time that used to be open, and he was surprised to learn that, like, I had read on, I forget which website, that they posted new regs and that they were closed longer than they were before. Were they never closed, or was it year round before?
It was year round. On the California side, what happened for the non-traditional non-trout season from November 16th through the last Friday of the month in April, it was catch and release only in California, to where during trout season you could keep one fish above 18 inches.
Okay.
On the California side, now it's completely closed for throughout the winter.
For the spawn, yeah.
For the spawn, and nobody really knows why they did it.
Really?
I guess,
yeah.
A new guy took over the Department of Fish and Game in California and redid the regulations almost everywhere.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So it's changed a little bit there. I mean, California is getting a good rest now, you know?
Yeah, no, I'm all for, I mean, I live right here on the Lower American River, and I'd be all for like a rotating full year closed on it. I mean, it's already seen some, what I see as benefits from the West Coast salmon closure. And, it was traditionally a salmon, fall salmon river, and there would be, varying amounts of fish counts. The stories were lots huge numbers back in the day, but they've gotten lower and lower. And it seems that may have helped a little bit. I mean, I went to the hatchery with my daughter on a field trip, and there was a ton of fish there, and I saw the numbers that came off, and they were positive.
Right.
Nowhere near what they used to be. But
Right.
yeah, I'd be all for, it sucks saying that because it's my home river and I live right here and I'd love to go down there and even just get an hour of casting in, if I'm not fishing. But 1 year off, there's a lot of other places that I could go and get my fix of fishing. And
Right. You can
river
still
seems
go down there and cast too,
That's
for
true.
practice.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Well,
that's interesting that there wasn't a real reason. I guess I just assumed the spawn, but
yeah, I think that the guy just wanted to make a bunch of changes. It went over really bad in Bridgeport.
Oh yeah.
Because still throughout winter, it still brought people into the town to fish, and all of a sudden their only lifeline to, economic resource was cut off. And it really hurt, some of the smaller businesses, hotels. There's a couple hotels that stay open year round there that, I would stay at a couple times a year. And Ken's Fly Shop, I'd go in there and buy a couple things from them, type of thing. But now they're just getting a lot less business.
Yeah, hear that. Wasn't even considering that when I made my proclamation about being for an all the rotating year off. I'm not thinking about any of the other things that affects,
Yeah. It's interesting.
Yeah. But the number, I feel like there's not a whole lot of as far as guides go that are guiding on the Lower American anymore. I mean, you sure as heck don't really see reports, often online if you were looking. I mean, there isn't many.
Right.
I don't think that the, fish per mile or whatever is conducive to somebody trying to make a living as a guide on the American River anymore.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
especially with the
have you been up
steelhead
here?
too.
Yeah.
You know what? I haven't fished the American River, the Lower American River. I wanted to. Greg Vinci's book talks about it's a good steelhead fishery, or was a good steelhead fishery, and I've been wanting to get up there for that, and also the shad run.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Yeah, I'd say more likely come up for the shad run. I mean, steelheading is always kind of hit or miss, right? But I feel like it's more miss on the American. Although I've seen some real nice fish caught this year, winter fish on the American. In high flows too. We've had good water, so people. There's not a lot of space. You kind of got to know where to go when the river gets up over a certain level. And if you don't have a boat or something, especially like me.
So are they catching steelhead?
Yeah, there's steelhead being caught for sure. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I'm sure the numbers will come up as the salmon comes up,
Yeah, saw a whole lot of both beautiful fish in the hatchery while we were up there on the ladder and stuff. Yeah.
It would be nice to just make it a full catch and release fishery, too, just for both the salmon and the steelhead.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it was real different. I know this is a totally different river than we're supposed to be talking about, but that's all good. Like I would go fishing during what would be traditionally salmon season here, like October, November this last year, and it'd be eerily quiet because that was like probably the busiest time, outside of summer floating and people fishing it or swimming in the river and stuff. And a lot of people fish shad in the summertime here for sure. That's just about to start up, and you should come up. I'll go out with you for a day. We'll go look for shad.
We just walk and wade?
Yeah. I mean, there's plenty of spots. I mean, the American River Trail follows the whole river, pretty much, and you can walk as far as you want, but there's plenty of access points, so you just kind of hop back and forth in a car and hit. Yeah.
And what about car break-ins? I heard that they were pretty bad there.
That is something you hear about it, huh? That's funny.
Yeah. I guess the running joke, down here is that you leave the windows open and a 6-pack of beer on the front seat with the $5 tip type of thing, and just.
Well, I'd say that probably works everywhere. But knock on wood, I've never gotten broken into.
Right.
Definitely heard plenty of stories. I think there's certain places, certain spots that are more conducive to that because, I mean, the closer you get to civilization, the more, traffic there is and chances of that happening for sure. But there's plenty of spots in the American that are, once you get out there, the parking lot's kind of deep and then you have a walk that, is plenty deep too. So
right.
You can feel like you're not in the city at all.
Yeah, that's nice. A good getaway, to clear the brain.
Yeah, and shad's fun, man. There's when it's good, it's real good. And
Are you using your spay rod for shad?
yeah, yeah, for sure. Just swinging the little, Bloody Maria style nymphs mostly. Yeah.
Uh-huh. And do you have a craft?
What do you mean? Oh,
Like a
watercraft?
watercraft,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, I'm typically waiting, just
Uh-huh.
standing out there. It's great because it's like a evening bite typically.
Right.
I mean, when it's the best, and at least from what I've experienced. And so, going down after work or after dinner or something like that and getting like 2 or 3 hours in until the sun goes down.
Nice.
Lots of, lots of fish.
Yeah, yeah, that's cool. Can you do with the single hand traditional fly rod?
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a pretty
Yeah.
good caster, so I should be able to get it out there, 80, 90 feet, no
Oh,
problem.
you'll be fine, man. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's throw a sink tip on and one or two of those nymphs usually is kind of the traditional rig.
Right.
Whatever sink tip, the water calls for, really. But
I just bought one. I just picked it up today. A sink tip with 6 IPS on it.
oh, yeah, that'll work, man.
Yeah, and it's a weight forward, dude. I could probably cast it 110 feet
Yeah,
if I
those
wanted
things
to.
just fly out. I love it.
They
Yeah,
fly. It's
yeah.
so much fun casting those things.
Yeah, well, Todd, let's back up a little bit, man. We got off on a tangent
Okay,
because
yeah,
I
no worries.
got
It's
some
all good.
basic questions for you because we fished together once. We met up on the pit, and I
Yeah,
didn't get
that's
to,
right.
I
Pit
didn't get
3.
to, yeah, I didn't fish with you a whole lot today. We kind of took off and went on our own routes, and I don't know if we ended up telling you afterwards, but me and Steve went hiking just so deep, dude, like in the wrong direction. Like
Uh-huh.
we'll do that, and I'll blame Steve too because like he just goes. He like starts
He's a
going.
go-getter.
Yeah, he just goes. He wants to fish. He wants to get to the spot, and he just starts trucking. And like
Mhm.
he's also somebody that I've seen take multiple swims in the river because he's like that waiting to. He'll
Right.
he'll just keep going and get
On the
himself
pit,
into
you
some
have to be
trouble.
careful.
Oh, it is not. It's no joke. Yeah, the signs are real out
Yeah.
there. Yeah,
Yeah, it's crazy, but talk about a healthy fishery. It's probably one of the healthiest fisheries in California as
yeah,
trout per mile, and insects and
yeah,
a good bite,
yeah.
after they
And
brought up those flows.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but kind of seems like you kind of can tell a pit fish too when you see them. Like they're kind of like chunky in a specific way.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
they are. They're fat. I mean, I've never had so many, fish days on that of all like 16 to like 19-inch fish,
Oh
rainbows,
yeah.
just,
Yeah.
back to back to back, healthy, fat, hard fighting fish.
Hell yeah. Yeah, I need to get back out there. It's the only
So
time I fished it. Yeah.
you guys fished the middle section of pit 3, and then did you guys go, oh, then I think you fished the siren run or whatever, where you park and you hike down.
Well, I don't remember getting back in the car, to be honest. Maybe we did. I'm bad.
Maybe
I'm
Steve
bad.
carried you back into the car.
I don't remember if we got in the car and drove to another spot. I felt like we went to the same spot as you and took a trail to the left when we got to the river and hiked forever. We might have came back and then got the car and gone somewhere else, but
Oh, maybe that's what you guys did. Yeah, because
oh,
the run where we started off in, it's not that long, although it could be very healthy and produce good fish. You guys were fishing that upper section. Then I thought you guys took off and fished the next section up where the siren is, and then you
yeah.
hiked down through the woods.
Well, we hiked forever, and Steve will usually outfish me, just the way it goes. And he got into maybe one like for hours. We were out there forever and weren't having any luck. Mostly tripping around and trying to find our footing and stuff out there. And we eventually ended up on a run. It was like the one like swingable run that I found the whole time I was there. So I swung flies through it while Steve was nymphing through some other part of it, and got my only fish of the whole day.
How big was it?
I was 18, 19, just like you're talking about, probably.
Big fat rainbow.
Yeah, it was rad. It was enough for me for the day.
Yeah, yeah. It really changes your attitude once you get into a fish,
Yeah,
You
but
could go through a dry spell.
I know we wasted a shit ton of time out there in the wrong direction, like in doing the wrong shit. So I want to go back for sure. It was cool. Very,
Yeah,
very
we'll
cool.
have to get up there and fish it. I know the river pretty good, at least pit 3, and if you could wade, we could get you in some pretty good fish there.
Yeah, I won't be as bold this time. Nobody took a swim that day, but it was like, it is serious. Like people talk about it being difficult to wade, and it's no joke. It's treacherous. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's crazy. I got my foot stuck in the rock there.
Oh,
Only
shit.
thank God for 30 seconds, but I started, freaking. Well, what if I'm here for an hour or two?
Yeah,
It's
that's the kind of place because it's like big rocks all over the place. You're going from like waist deep to ankle deep, like in one step,
Yeah.
in a lot of spots, and
Yeah.
yeah, slippery.
Do you fish with the waiting staff?
I do, yeah.
Okay, good.
Not always, but if I feel like there's ever going to be a chance where I'm crossing a river, or if
Right.
I'm in a river like the Pit, for
Yeah,
sure, I'll
definitely
bring
use the
one.
waiting staff.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
awesome.
so where are you located, Todd?
Bay Area, El Cerrito, which is just right next to Alameda County, Albany, Berkeley area. Pretty close to Steve.
Yeah, so your home shop is that Fish First there.
Yeah, Fish
Yeah.
First Leo. Yeah, it's a great little shop.
Yeah.
I
Steve
try
took
to
me in
support
there.
it as much as possible.
I was surprised how much stuff they had in such a tiny little space, because it is a small shop, and they had a bunch of
Yeah,
stuff.
and they got good fly tying material in there and good, they have enough stock in case if you need anything. Normally they don't have to order stuff. So
Yeah, and what seemed like trustworthy reports on the local rivers and stuff. Yeah.
yeah, and the good thing about, Leo mostly works there. He's one of the
I didn't
owners.
meet him. Yeah, there was a younger guy in there that day.
Oh, it's probably AJ. But he's pretty cool. He'll tell you if you're buying the right thing or not, even if he's going to lose a sale.
Yeah, I love it.
He
Yeah.
he's honest and doesn't want people spending money on stupid shit.
Yeah,
So
right on.
it's good to have a local shop like that.
Yeah, mine just closed, Keeney's, and they were the same way. In fact, I had to kind of fight one of the Mike there, not physically, but like he was trying to talk me out of something, and I was like, "No, I'm gonna get it." Like it was just it was a adapter for my Vice, and
Okay.
he's like, "No, you don't want this, and you need this also." And I declined to take his advice and was sorry about it. So
And
yeah.
I think I just listened to the episode you were talking about, like for tube flies or something.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, it was a tube adapter that I had bought online, and I told him about it. He's like, I don't know about that. You probably want this, and he was right, because I ended up buying that anyway. So
Right. Nice.
So how did you end up in El Cerrito then? You been there? You born and raised, or what?
Yeah, born and raised here in the Bay Area, and pretty much lived here my whole life, and spent 18 months down in Peru. I lived down there, which was an adventure, and then just came back up to the Bay and just been here ever since.
Wow.
Yeah.
When was this? When were you in Peru?
Let's see. I moved there in 2012, January of
Oh, wow.
2012, and then came
Recently.
back in June of 2013.
Wow, way cool, man.
Yeah, it was an adventure, that's for sure.
Well, back home though.
Back home in the Bay Area, right next to the Bay, it never gets too hot, never gets too cold. I could see San Francisco from my balcony.
Yeah, I like El Cerrito. I'm not a Bay Area guy. Like it's not really my speed. But when I've gone down to the El Cerrito area, I've dug it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's cool. We got a couple of casting ponds here in the Bay Area and good fly shops and good fly fishing clubs.
Yeah.
So it's a good place to be. A lot of people, a lot of traffic, all the things that suck. We have those too, crime and whatever. But it's a good place. It's a beautiful place, and general good mix of ethnic diversity, and that I sort of really like. So yeah.
It also means lots of good different food.
Absolutely. That's one thing that just sort of drove me crazy in Peru, was like all Peruvians, which I love Peruvians, don't get me wrong. But, there was, just Peruvians there and all Peruvian food, So it's I was, really looking forward to getting back to a rich culture society when I came back from Peru.
So what would you consider your home water then? Or would you a saltwater guy?
No, I haven't really gone in that direction yet in the salt. I've been wanting to, and maybe start fishing for big mouth bass and whatever, but I haven't really done that. I just love going out and fishing for trout. I like the waters that the trout are in. The areas are usually beautiful.
Oh yeah.
And getting out in nature has always been important to me. I was sort of raised camping and, so around waters, lakes and rivers, so it's just something that I go to sort of get away from the Bay and get away from, the rat race and just sort of cleanse my mind.
Yeah.
So, I go to get away from everything.
Yeah. I like it.
Yeah.
It's good for that. And it's true about trout.
Yeah.
They find the pretty spots for sure. Usually.
Yeah. So, it's hard to say, really where my home waters have been because it sort of changes. I would say, well, I grew up on the McLeod River, going up there several times a year,
Love the
and only
McLeod.
fishing the McLeod. But, then I started branching out a little bit. So the East Walker became my home river for probably 4 or 5 years. I was going up there maybe 10, 15 times a year, as much as I possibly could. Recently, I've sort of moved over to the Fall River. Sort of became my home water last year.
Wow, cool.
I just fell in love with that fishery.
Yeah, I haven't been there. Man, I
Oh man,
read about it all the time. Yeah.
it's magical, but it's hard to get on because you need a craft.
Yeah.
It's all private property. So, but they have good dry fly hatches there, good, swinging wet flies, emergers,
Hell yeah.
good streamer fishing, but you need a craft. So, I bought a kayak so I could putt up and down the river.
Cool.
Steve has a couple kayaks. We should all three go out
Dude,
up there. It's phenomenal.
I got two. Yeah, I got a kayak too, man.
You fly fish right out of them. They're
Dude,
awesome
yeah.
for fly fishing.
Man, we got to make something happen. That sounds like a blast.
Yeah, I'll be going up there in June and July. So if you're interested, just let me know. And then they have a launch right there at Cal Trout. And, I know the river enough to where we could get definitely into some fish,
Fresh, yeah.
Just set up an easy anchor system for your kayak. And that's all you need.
Yeah. I got an anchor that is not properly set up though.
Okay. Well, we could properly set it up in 5 minutes with some rope and,
Yeah, I know what you mean too. You got to have it set up to where you can actually function correctly. Yeah.
Yeah, there it's pretty important, because you're usually fishing.
Trouble. Yeah.
Yeah. The Fall River is like a slow moving lake. Have you ever fished Bomb Lake?
No, but I've heard that about the Fall River too. That it's not anything crazy like
It's like just a real slow current, 1 or 2 miles per hour, no rocks, no structure, But you're fishing downstream for all the fish, so anchoring and boat position is pretty important.
Okay. You said it's magical, more magical than the McLeod, because that's like what I think of when I think
it's
like
a different
magical.
River, yeah. As in, this is a river where you just paddle up and you look down in the river and you see thousands of fish swimming around, and the hatches.
Yeah, super clear too, right?
It's super clear. It's all fresh, cold water that just comes right out of the out of springs up in the upper section, and good hatches year round. So you're always getting some good dry fly fishing. The water's crystal clear, like we talked about, but it gives the trout a lot of time to really inspect your fly before they decide to eat it. So it's a very challenging fishery. And that's sort of where I've been going lately, is like sight fishing. And like the more challenging the fishery, the more I want to fish it, So it's a great fishery. We should meet up there.
Yeah, man, I'd love to. And you talked about the Fly Club. I'm assuming you're talking about Diablo Valley.
Yeah, Diablo Valley, and then there's a couple casting clubs down here in the Bay Area too. The Oakland Casting Club I was a member of, and
I finally joined a fly fishing club. It was Diablo Valley per Steve's urging, and Ken, my buddy Ken Gutell. You know him too, right?
Oh yeah, I know Ken. Yeah. So when did you join?
Oh, just a couple weeks ago. I just now paid my dues and got in there, and I've been, poking around at the calendar, looking at, upcoming trips and stuff like that. But it seems like I know it's a big club, and it seems like you got to be quick to get in on those trips. Like
you have to be quick.
Up. Yeah.
But I do a lot of the lower Yuba trips for them.
Oh yeah. Cool. Yeah, I was going to ask what you're doing. I know you've done. Steve mentioned that you had hosted some trips, and I was wondering if you had anything coming up. Yeah.
No, all the trips to the lower Yuba got canceled this year because of high flows and weather. But next year, we're going to try to get on the property as much as we can, probably at least 3 or 4 days.
Cool.
And I'll let you know ahead of time so you could get on one of those trips. It's the UC property of the Yuba River. It's a beautiful stretch of river. I got a couple videos on it. I don't know if you've seen them.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I want to get in there, man.
We usually allow, you could bring up to 20 anglers up there, but we bring 15, and there's like 2.5 miles of river, and the fish are strong, good hatches. If you time it right in the spring and even in the winter, the egg bite. So I do some trips, for the Yuba River there, and then I've done a Fall River trip, and I'll do a couple other trips. We also do this roundtable discussion. Did you see that on the calendar?
I think so. It sounds familiar. Yeah.
Yeah, buddy of
There's a
mine.
couple things like I missed the emerger class that just happened. I wanted to go to join that too, but I was busy and
Oh, that presentation.
yeah.
Yeah, the presentation was okay. On the fourth Tuesday of every month, we have this roundtable discussion. Mark Lycos and I sort of wanted to like have a social outlet in a club. He sort of was talking about doing it like pre-meeting, and I was talking to him about doing it like not a part of the meeting. Let's do it like meeting for
separate thing.
coffee.
Yeah.
So we sort of brainstormed the idea and decided to give it the name the Roundtable.
Cool.
And we pick a subject every month. We do it on Zoom, and it's on the calendar. And basically, we have everyone sort of introduce themselves and introduce, their knowledge around the night's topic. And then basically, we all just sit around and BS and talk about a specific subject of fly fishing, and sort of have a question and answer.
Cool.
And it's gone over great, man. It's like we're on like I would say 37th, 38th, month. So it's been going on over 3 years. We haven't duplicated a subject yet.
So you've been part of the club for a while now then. Yeah.
I think I joined that club like right around the pandemic, 2000, it might have been 2000, late 2020 and early 2021. I did a East Walker presentation for them, and since they hired me to do the presentation, I joined their club, and it's a great club, super organized, lots of trips, good programs, casting programs.
It seemed that way. I don't know if you heard, I talked about it on my show before about how I tried to join a local club here, and I can't even remember the name. I wouldn't tell you if I could, but like they told me not to. Like they talked me out of joining. So I was kind of sour on joining the fly club for a while, and then hearing Steve and Ken both in it, and then you were in it, and they all had positive things to say. I'm like, fine, I'm in. I'm not local down there or anything, but I can get in on this too.
Yeah, but they're organized, and we have the Zoom meetings, so you could see the presentations and a lot of the trips, and it's a great club. It really is a good organized, good.
It seems
club.
that way, and it's active too. And the calendar's full of stuff to do, and they're booked up in advance. Like people are a couple months out already jumping on that, which is great to see. I'm a little slow to it. I'm new, so I'll figure out that I got to get in on these, quick as soon as they're posted, and I'll figure it out.
Yeah, they're doing a trip to the East Walker, I think, in September. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So let's talk about the East Walker then. So when did you first fish the East Walker, and what made you make that's not a short trip from where you're at. That's a pretty deep drive. Yeah.
Yeah, what's interesting is like it's not as far as you think, and it's even closer to Sacramento. So from my house up to the Pit 3 is 265 miles.
All right.
From my house up to the Nevada side of the East Walker is 265 miles.
Oh, wow. All right.
Yeah, so it's actually closer than the McCloud River to get down to like Adina or even Ash Camp.
Yeah, it's getting all the way down in those.
Yeah. So the how I got into the East Walker is me and my buddy, we were talking, over a couple beers, and we both wanted to like become like, streamer fishermen and like hunt for, trophy trout. So we went out and bought that. Did you read Kelly Gallup's book?
No.
Modern Streamers for Trophy Trout?
No, it's on my Amazon list. I don't have it. Yeah.
It's pretty good. And he has one really good section about fighting fish in that book that, really helped me learn how to fight fish better.
Cool.
But, so, we wanted to go out and fish streamers for big brown trout. That's what we wanted to do. And we didn't really know where we were going to do it or how we were going to do it, but we were just going to, try to do it. So we got the book, we read it, he read it, I read it, we sort of compared notes. And then, I started digging through my California Fly Fisher book by Greg Vinci. I think he was a part of that fly shop up by you.
Yeah, I believe he was. Yeah.
Yeah. He wrote a pretty good book on, the fly fishing waters in California. And there was a pretty good section there on the East Walker. And it was basically what we were looking for. It was like, big trophy trout that love to eat streamers, and was really with the exception of like the McLeod, for the brown run in October and fall,
or the Truckee, yeah,
are the Truckee too.
Yeah.
There's not. It's not like Montana where we have fishery after fishery with this type of fishing, so we didn't have a lot of choices. We went out to the McLeod, and then, the McLeod was closed through the winter at that time. So, we were looking for other options and found the East Walker. So I started reading about it and I was like, man, I'm going in the East Walker. And I think the first time I fished it was 15. It was in the drought year. It was a pretty hard drought that we got. I might have went up there in 2014, drove through the area, checked out the river, was on like a little road trip with my wife, so I didn't fish, and then got up there in 2015 and started fishing it and hitting it hard.
Nice. Yeah. So that's what brings you back then. You're still looking for those big browns, like the trophy brown, right?
The trophy browns and the trophy trout, the rainbows. It's a magical fishery. It's so beautiful up there too, It's like you go up there, you leave a piece of your heart,
Yeah, well, totally different terrain than what I'm used to. The Eastern Sierra kind of high desertish kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, it is. It's like where the pines meet the desert,
Yeah, I'm not used to that. It's not where when I think of booking a trip, like I'm going out somewhere coastal, like that's always what comes up. So like this is always, it's not, I'm trying to get out of my comfort zone with this kind of stuff too. Like I just went out to Pyramid, right? And fished that for a couple days. And so yeah, this is on my list for sure. I want to go out there. I know camping there's pretty easy too. And,
camping's easy on the California side and Nevada side. Basically, they pretty much allow you to camp anywhere you want. On California, there's a bunch of pull-outs. People just sort of pitch up a tent and camp all along the river, and then down in Nevada, it's all BLM land. I think there's a regulation about camping within a certain, distance from the river, over 50 feet, over 100. I don't know what it is in Nevada.
Okay.
Yeah, but there's plenty of camping. Bridgeport is right there, so it's a happening little town, and during fishing season, which opens up next weekend.
Yeah, let's talk about the regulations. We kind of touched on it at the very beginning, but the regs recently changed, and now what is the period that's closed exactly for the winter season?
The river closes, I think the last day you could fish it is November 15th on the California side. So the East Walker spans two states. It starts up in California and drains into Nevada. So you got two different regulations that you're going with.
Okay.
So in California, the regulations currently right now in 2024 are it closes April 15th is the last day you can fish it. So November 16th is you can't fish it. It's closed all the way to the last. I think it opens up on the last Saturday of April.
Okay. And from what I understand though, like the flows also essentially kind of close it on its naturally right at some point in the year, right?
No, not necessarily.
But they get like high enough where it's really tough, or like
and the flows are just insane on the East Walker.
Yeah, what's the fluctuation? Because it's a kind of a skinnier stream, right?
Yeah, it is. It's smaller, and the fluctuations. When they're saving water in that reservoir, they choke it down to like 20 CFS.
Right. Okay.
21 CFS, 24 CFS. Usually that's like non-irrigation time. So I think irrigation season ends November 1st and jumps back March 1st, and then is in full swing. Certain amount of farmers down there in Nevada have older grandfathered rights in, so they could start calling for water March 1st. The majority of the farmers in Nevada could start calling for water April 1st. So once April 1st starts up, it's irrigation time, and it depends what those farmers are ordering, depends on how much they're opening that dam up. And then also the other big challenge with the flows is how much water and how much snow is up in the mountains up there, and how much runoff they're going to get, how full is the lake. So it's sort of a all these variables, so right now they're more like in flood control mode, like they're more regulating
steady release or something. Yeah.
Well, as far as I've been seeing, I've been watching the flows pretty close for the last month because I've been going up there a lot in this last month. It seems like they're trying to keep that lake as full as possible, but so they're trying to regulate. It looks to me like they're regulating the flows right now to what's coming into the lake. So the lake is
what
really
lake are we
full.
talking about?
It's called Bridgeport Reservoir.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. So the flows are increasing right now, and I think there's plenty of water. It's like 98% full. I haven't seen it this full. I think last year it filled up pretty full too. But
so it go from 20 at the low end to like what at the high end do you see it at of CFS?
I would say like this year, last year, we saw it over 1,000, 800. You'll see that 800, 600, 400, it goes all over the place. It's almost like Poudre Creek. I mean, it goes crazy and it goes swings. They'll raise the levels on any given day. I was up there a couple weeks ago on a Saturday and they raised it Saturday afternoon. They'll do it on holiday weekends. They'll do it, whenever. There's no schedule, and they'll raise them up from 100 to 200 or 300.
Just step it up.
Yeah. So I suspect there's still a lot of snow up there. I was up there this weekend. There's still a lot of snow up in those mountains, and the lake is full. So it's going to come up. It probably won't be fishable in the next couple weeks. Just too much water flowing through there. Maybe through July, maybe even early August. So
then in your opinion, what's the best season to go out there? Like what's the good, the primo time?
Yeah, I would say if you could get up there in spring or fall would be probably my best time to roll up there.
Right before it closes out, October-ish.
Yeah, like October would be killer time to go. Late September, it gets pretty hot up there. The other thing that we deal with the East Walker is if there's not a lot of water in that reservoir and it's a hot summer, the water temperatures come up in that lake are in the reservoir. It's a pretty shallow reservoir, so the water temperature warms up pretty quick, and then once temps get up to 65, you got to pretty much just stop fishing.
Yeah, it just gets unethical at that point for sure.
So you just got to let it rest, and that's what happened several summers in a row, right before we had the good rain last year and a good water season this year. We were coming up to pretty severe drought, and I believe it. They were asking people not to fish it in early July. Okay. But conversely, on a heavy water year, the flows could be too high until August.
They call it the hoot owl closure,
yeah,
right?
The hoot owl closure.
Yeah.
So, it's a matter of timing, but, you could pretty much count, spring's going to be pretty good. And depending on how much water's in that reservoir and the temperatures of the water and, fall could be fantastic too.
So, you mentioned streamers, obviously, but is it like a multiple rods kind of river? Like you want to bring a couple different things with you? Like what do you usually take? Are you zeroing in on one thing and just throwing streamers that day, or do you bring a couple things with you? What do you do?
Nowadays I'm fishing usually with one rod. And I have a system that I worked out that I could switch it up pretty quick if I want to go from nymphing to dry flies to streamers. It's a pretty small river. So, having two rods is always convenient because you could have one set up one way and you just pull out the other rod and you just start fishing it. There's no downtime.
Yeah.
But now, I just carry one rod and you could do with one rod. Some guys take two. But, I want to go back real quick, if it's a good time, about the regulations.
Yeah, let's keep going, man. Yeah, whatever.
Only because, so basically we just talked about the California side.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And one thing we didn't talk about the regulations is that you could catch and keep on the East Walker in California. So now they changed it. It was during, regular trout season from the last Saturday of April to November 15th. You were allowed to keep a trout over 18 inches on the East Walker. Now they've changed it. So they're resting the river through winter. It's closed. Once it opens up, you could keep 2 trout
Well,
larger than
they upped
18
the bag limit.
inches.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. And, a lot of people will just want to have it changed to, catch and release fishery only in California. And that's sort of what the Nevada side does. So once you cross the state line, there's probably about, I would say, 7-8 miles of river in California. And there's different characteristics as you go through to get to state line. And then once you get to state line, Nevada, the regulations are 365 days a year, catch and release only. You could fish 24 hours a day.
Oh, fishing at night. All right.
Yeah. And I love Nevada. They do a pretty good job with protecting their, fisheries. They do a good job up on the Truckee River. They do a great job on the East Walker. So back to California, you can't fish at night in California in Mono County.
Okay.
In Nevada, you can. So it's pretty nice to have that option,
Yeah. Do you throw mice out there?
You can. People do go out at mice, and I haven't done it yet, but there's a whole group of us that want to go out there. We might do it this summer.
Dude,
that would be a lot of fun. Yeah.
I've never thrown mouse for a trout on purpose. I've casted them around, but never seriously fished it. Like I definitely want to do that.
Yeah, and you could camp over there. We could have a good time, and it's not really that far from Sacramento.
No, and Steve, is always his selling point on this is always that he could pick me up on the way out there because he's going past Sacramento. And I'm like, all right, you got me. Let's go.
I know it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, and once you get down into Nevada, probably about, I would say, maybe about 7-8 miles down into Nevada, it turns into a catch, and keep if you want to. And they stalk the river down at the bottom. But the upper section, the Rosace Ranch, is all catch and release.
Cool.
Yeah.
Right
So
on,
I just
man.
wanted to finish up about
I appreciate
because
that. Yeah.
we sort of jumped ahead a little bit.
Yes, you touched on a very interesting point too with being able to fish at night. I mean, that's definitely appealing. I didn't even realize that. I didn't know. Didn't know the regulations were different for the river crossing the state lines for some dumb reason, and didn't know that they didn't change on the Nevada side, just California. And the night fishing is rad. Way cool.
Yeah, night fishing would be a ton of fun, but you have to sort of know the river, know the area, So, yeah, we should plan a group. Maybe we could do a club trip,
Dude, do a night trip.
Yeah, me, you, Ken, and Steve.
Yes, let's do it, man.
Yeah, Diablo Valley Club. Yeah.
So, okay, well then, so I'm assuming that the reason that you're okay with bringing one rod out there is the way you rig it up, right? So you're probably using something like a float line for all around, right? And you're not not using any sort of sink tip on the streamers or anything like that either?
Not very often. This weekend, I threw intermediate sink tip line, or just a sinking line is all I had at the time, and it helped get it down a little bit, but generally the flows are low enough there, that.
Please excuse this brief interruption from one of our many sponsors.
Picture this. You're going to the movie theater with your number one gal. You have every reason to believe that it's going to be a really great night. It's a fine spring evening and you're going to see a movie you're both excited about. You just finished an excellent, reasonably priced dinner and you're holding hands with the love of your life. You're feeling as light as a feather. You're completely in love and you know that this person loves you back. The feeling is indescribable. You don't believe in perfection, but you're having trouble thinking of anything wrong with this evening. You're usually quick to find flaws or become annoyed with things, but tonight feels different. Everything is just right. The two of you enter the theater and she suggests checking out the concessions being offered before heading in and finding your seats. You still have 10 minutes before the movie is scheduled to begin, so you happily agree, and you both get in line. You joke with each other about how much of a rip-off movie popcorn is, but you both admit that no movie theater experience is complete without some. You look into her eyes as she laughs, and you feel that you've met the woman you will marry, the woman you'll start a family with, grow old with, love until you die. You're filled with a new kind of relaxing happiness that you've never experienced before. Maybe this is true love. Maybe this is something beyond that. You squeeze her hand gently and tell her that you love her. She smiles at you and tells you that she loves you. It's just true, incredible, all-encompassing happiness and contentment as you two stand in the line waiting for your turn to order some popcorn and snacks. This episode of The Secret Society of Fly Tires is brought to you by Milk Duds. Get them at the concession stand of your local movie theater today. Milk Duds.
You don't really need a sink tip, but if the flows are raging, I would say definitely a sink tip line would be great. Depending on which section you're fishing, because because you probably got 10 miles of river, 7-8 miles of river in California, and then a good 8 miles of catch and release trout stream in Nevada. So you're talking 16 miles of river. So a river could change a lot in that 16 miles.
Yeah. And did you say you can kind of fish every way though? Like is there a dry fly thing there? And
no, the dry fly fishing is really scarce. I mean, you can get into some fish on the dry there, but there's a lot of insects in that water and a lot of bait fish, and there's plenty of food subsurface for these fish, so there's no real reason for them to, start feeding on the surface. You can find it, and it does happen, but it's not a place where you're going to go to look for dry fly experience.
What about nymphing then? Are you even bothering with a bobber, or is it more kind of Euro nymphing, or
it could be a little bit of both? It depends. What section you're fishing. If there's pocket water, you could go more tight lining, or if it's slow, sort of meadowy water, you could fish tight line and indicator fish it. So nymphing is very productive on the river. It's pretty fun going through there. So my setup is basically, I generally using like a 5-weight rod, 9-foot 5-weight. If I'm sometimes I'll bring my 10-foot tight lining rod, a ESN out there. And so a 3-weight in that case. So I would say any rod between a 3 to 6-weight would be fine for that river. I would say 3, 4, 5 would be ideal. 6 is a little bit heavy down there. And then, I usually use double taper. I like using double taper lines as opposed to weight forward, floating line. And then I use a basic, tapered leader. And then at the end of my tapered leader, I just tie on a tippet ring. It's the only tippet ring I use on my whole setup. And then if I'm nymphing or tight lining with the indicator line, I'll tie on the indicator line onto the tippet. On the tippet ring, and then build
gives you the versatility right there.
There. And then if I'm throwing streamers, I'll just use like a 1X tippet, maybe 2X tippet on the end of that tippet ring. And then if I'm going to dries, which I do, any chance I get to fish a dry fly on the East Walker, I'm gonna do it, because those fish are super spooky and super selective. So when you get that opportunity, it's the opportunity that I'm looking for, is like the most selective, most difficult way to catch a fish possible, a trout, and they spook super easy. But with that system that I have, with just that tippet ring on the end of that tapered leader, then I could just tie my 6X tippet, 7X tippet onto that. So I could switch between a nymph rig to a streamer rig to a dry fly setup with just like cutting off a couple feet of to the tippet ring and just switching up. So I could change it pretty quick now with that system.
You're going to be interested in, I don't know if you follow Gilligan Coles. You follow Gilligan?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you're familiar with the rods that he's putting out right now, those Truckee Speed rods. I got them coming on the show here in a couple episodes. Or maybe, I think it might have already aired by the time this one airs, but they seem to be, like a perfect rod for that kind of thing, where you're switching out just the basic part of it,
Right. Yeah. It's sort of nice to be able to do that, and I mean, I could switch out, 3 or 4 minutes, so it doesn't take that much time. And
although it seems like a easier hiking type of river, am I wrong? Like it's not bushwhacking like you are on the McLeod or something.
It's different. It's because they have, they might be willows. I don't know what they are that grow right along the river. It's impossible to get through them.
Okay.
So once you're in the river, you're good. You're hiking up and down the river. But if you have to bushwhack through, sometimes these willows or whatever trees are, but they're like you said, super dense, brushy bush. Tree-ish thing, and like really sort of like you can't break the branches, they're really elasticy, and you barely could crawl through them, and then they'll go 100 yards on the river, 200 yards. So if you're trying to get into the river through this these sections of trees or bushes or whatever they are, it's almost impossible, or get out of the river. So it could be super, super challenging to get through. It's like you just got to walk around half the time and find a place where you could enter the river and exit the river.
I was just picturing, sagebrush and stuff, and like nothing impeding your
It's
out
like
to the
that.
water.
It's like that in some of the sections, but in a lot of the sections, it's like super dense,
crazy,
brush that's almost impossible to get through.
So what flies then do you fish? What streamers are you fishing? What nymphs do you use? Like, what do you usually have in your box when you go out there?
I usually just carry, my general, I have like 2 boxes I carry. One sort of for more surfacey stuff. So it's a dry fly emerger box, and then I have a nymph streamer box combined. So I just carry those 2 fly boxes with me. So I'm always prepared for anything. But for nymphs, I would say you can't go wrong with the Pat's rubber leg, or the Buy It Back stone is one of my favorite stone patterns. Any stone fly imitation would be fine, Kaufman stone or whatever. But, there's a lot of betas on that river, PMDs. So you could go with, your small mayfly imitations, maybe hare's ear, bird's nests. You could go with Rainbow Warriors work, Paragon's work, midge patterns work for nymphs. Pretty much your standard stuff, Pheasant tails are always a great choice there. Frenchies, sexy waltworm, stuff like this.
Okay. What about the streamer stuff?
Streamer, you could go out there with your basic woolly bugger would be fine. The Zuddler, I love the Zuddler.
Okay.
Is one of the. Have you tied any of those?
No, I haven't tied that pattern. I'm familiar. What do you like as far as weight on the streamers that you're tying there? What are you doing? Are they real weight forward? Are they no weight? What do you do?
No, they're weighted. So, I'm tying all my flies basically. And, I start off with a little lead on the shank, and then a bead head or even, cone head. And then, so they're weighted down quite a bit. If I have tungsten, if I'm using like a bead head, I'll use a tungsten bead head on the nymphs or the streamers. So I weight them down pretty good. And then, so patterns that I love fishing on the East Walker would be, my number one pattern would probably be the Zuddler, like Oliver White.
Okay. White. Interesting. Yeah.
White, man, it's a great color.
I know. I don't tie enough.
We're sorry. You have reached a number that has been disconnected or is no longer in service. If you feel you have reached this recording in error, please check the number and try your call again.
Never had that happen before. Was that me?
I don't know. Yeah, I was just going to check my internet connection.
I'm assuming it was. Yeah. Anyway, it was real quick. We were right in the middle of talking
the white streamer.
White, yeah. I mean, especially me, I'm tying tons of dark streamers, brown, lots of black, maybe some color within that, but white is usually one I forget about.
All right, so black is another good color I like to use, or olive or chartreuse on the East Walker. So those are my 3-4 colors that I like to use. But back to the white. Something about white is magical, man.
Yeah.
And I think one of the biggest advantages of the white is that you could see it in the water swimming, right? So you always know where your streamer is, almost always.
Point, yeah.
And, and a lot of people don't realize like streamer fishing is like really visual, I mean, last weekend when I was on the East Walker, I mean, I only landed 6 or 7 fish on Saturday, but if you pay attention to where your streamer's at and keep an eye on it, you'll see flashes, you'll get bites, you'll see chases, you'll see rejects, short strikes, you'll see all kinds of things.
Cool.
And a lot of times, you see that happening, and it's really exciting, so it's almost as fun as dry fly fishing. And then
scratches the same itch, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's super exciting. You got a trout following your fly, and you don't really know what to do. Do I stop it? Do I speed it up? Do I slow it down? Do I kick it over to the side? What do I do because it's like right on the tail.
Yeah.
But that white you'll always see it, and something about it just because a lot of fish, the bottom side of those fish are white.
Yeah.
So if a trout's looking up, they're seeing white.
Yeah. For sure.
But it's a trigger color. It works good on the Truckee. It works good on the East Walker. But that Zudler, the cone, it sort of has a cone head of deer hair, spun deer hair, right? And then you sort of chop it off. And the deer hair is usually a little bit lighter. So using that pattern, you could see the head of your fly pretty good. So that fly you could see pretty good. Yeah. And another streamer I like to use is, God, what is it?
It was the deer hair that prevented me from trying that pattern before, because I was always a little intimidated to start spinning up deer hair and stuff.
Yeah.
And I just started getting more comfortable with it. I started tying some muddlers and stuff, so I could try that one.
Yeah, it's a good fly. It's pretty easy to tie. They take a little time, but then the deer hair is like, I'm always like, I don't want to use all my deer hair. I'm like skimping on it a little bit.
Yeah.
But you could use rabbit hair around the head of it. And last weekend I brought some meat whistles up with me, which worked.
Yeah.
And what's the other one is a slump buster.
Yeah, I hear about the slump busters. That's always mentioned on the reports. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's actually a pretty good fly. It's almost exactly like a Zudler,
but way heavier in the front, right? They got that heavy kind of, what do they call it? The fish mask or whatever. That, like, it's not a cone, it's not a bead.
The ones that I was tying, mine had a cone on it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and then it's not deer hair. You're using pine squirrel, and the head of it, you just wrap a pine squirrel strip around the head of it, so it's almost like the cone head of a Zudler, for instance. So it swims pretty good. It's a little bit easier to tie. You don't have to waste all your deer hair on them. So those would be the streamers that I fish on there. They're pretty good patterns.
So what are the extremes there? Like, have you been skunked on the East Walker?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
When I started fishing them back in 2015, it was just after a drought year, and the river wasn't in that good of shape.
Okay.
And so I went up there probably 3 or 4 times, and I didn't know the river at all. I didn't hire a guide. I was just like, just sort of going up there trying to learn it, and I didn't do good the first couple times I was up there. And slowly, I started learning it more and more and more and becoming extremely successful. The river, became more healthy as time went by, after we had a couple good rainy seasons. So the fish count came up. So that always helps. But yeah, I've been skunked up there a couple times in the beginning, man. And, to the point, where people even say, why are you even going up there?
Well, I feel like in fly fishing, you have to be motivated by the skunk, or it's just like you're going to be shit out of luck, because you rarely go to a new place and do well, without a guide and on your own. So you got to be motivated by the failure. Yeah.
Yeah, and the river changes so much at different flows, right? So, you're fishing at low flows and you find your favorite sections to fish. And then at high flows, those aren't even fishable. So then all of a sudden you got to relearn the river in a different way. So it's sort of a complex river to learn because of that. And then the extremes in winter and summer, right? Because I was going up there in winter. I mean, I'd wake up and open up the back. I sleep in the back of my truck. I got a camper shell on there. And, there's snow on the ground. I've gone up there, got caught in whiteouts going over the Sierras, a little bit of snow's no problem to fish, and rain sucks to fish in, but snow's no problem.
Yeah.
But and it gets hot up there in the summer. So, it's just sort of, it changes a lot, with the flows and the temperatures. So it's fun to get up there. 2 other flies I wanted to mention real quick. It's the skittish smolt. You know that one?
No, I'm not familiar with that one.
It's a super easy tie. It was my first tie.
Okay.
Basically, it's on a cone head. It's, has a little bit of flash and, like a rubbery sort of material for the body, like a red body.
Okay.
And then you put some flash on there and then some ostrich fur or feather.
Yeah.
Right on top, and then you just throw some dubbing on it. Super easy tie, but it's super effective up there.
Huh.
So olive, skittish smolt, and then you can't talk about the East Walker River without talking about the Angler's Edge Fly Shop. I mentioned Liz to you. Liz and Dawn own it, and that's up in Gardnerville. Really super friendly folks. and good little tiny fly shop, real honest. They give out information for free. I always support them anytime I go through the town. She has a little stash spot behind the bushes, so I always call her up and say, hey, I need some flies, I need this, I need that. She'll charge my credit card, throw it in the bushes. I'll pick it up there at 3:00 in the morning going through town.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, no, and she does a couple flies, but her Nevada hooker is the best, man.
Yeah.
And I don't even think she's selling those anymore. She told me last time I talked to her, that's a guide fly, Todd. I'm not selling those anymore. But if you could get your hand on some of those Nevada hookers, it's
I'll definitely
killer.
I'll definitely go to the fly shop when I get out there. Absolutely. I try to every time I go to a place like that, I hit the closest or local fly shop for sure. And I may not need anything, but I'll grab a couple things,
Exactly.
They're all leaving. They're all closing up. I don't know how much longer these places will be there. So
yeah, and she's like the East Walker is her favorite river. A lot of my knowledge, a lot of my understanding has coming from her. Just sharing her knowledge of the river with me. I hired her as a guide. She was a great guide. Cool. I got a great fish with her. Good, friendly person. Good for our community, fly fishing community.
Still an active guide out there?
Yeah, she does. She still guides out there, limited guiding, but she still guides. So you could hire her or her husband, and she has a couple other guides that she books through the shop. Cool. All the water up there, the East Carson, East Walker, West Walker.
Oh, what a perfect segue, Todd. I was going to ask you, what are some other places that people might want to consider fishing if they're going out there for a few days? And was going to ask you about places to stay and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, well, Bridgeport, on places to stay, Bridgeport is a pretty good asset to the East Walker River because it's just right there, 5 miles, 10 miles from the river, maybe 10 miles from state line. And they have Ken Sporting Goods where you could book private water. There's a little bit of private water on the East Walker River on the Nevada side. It's owned by a ranching family. And the water's pretty good there. I just fished it last month, early March, and we had a pretty good day there. And it has limited access, so they allow 4 anglers on 2 miles of river, essentially. And it could be, you and Steve could go up there, and then another 2 fly fishers could go up there that you don't know, or but they limited it to 4 people on the 2 miles of river. And then there's some other private water you could get through Ken's Fly Shop or Ken's Sporting Goods. So there's one time me and a buddy went up to Bridgeport, and we get up there and we're gearing up, and he said, I forgot my boots. I said, go to Ken's, man. So he went up there to buy a pair of boots, and apparently they rent boots.
Oh, wow.
So he rented a pair of boots for the whole weekend for like $10, but they rent float tubes and stuff like that. So, it's a good resource.
Yeah.
But
absolutely.
they also have a general store there. They have a brewery. They have several hotels and a couple restaurants. A lot of this and gas.
This is all ran by Ken?
No, this is, there's different businesses throughout the town. The town's
Ken was like the master of Bridgeport and owned all these places, but
so Bridgeport's a true asset. It's cool, couple different restaurants, hotels, couple gas stations. I think it's the county seat of Mono County. I'm not sure about that, but very seasonal because during the winter a lot of those hotels close. I don't even think there's a bar open in Bridgeport in winter. There is a general store where you could get your basic deli sandwiches. They actually sell meat and produce, beer, fishing equipment, traditional fishing equipment, bait, ice cream, tobacco, alcohol, type of thing. It's a small general store. But anytime you're going up there off season or period, anytime really, is that you want to check the hours with all those establishments because sometimes they'll close early, sometimes they'll close late.
I want to say I scouted out the Bridgeport Inn.
That place is awesome.
Is it awesome? Okay, cool. It looked like I looked at a bunch of different spots, and I don't know about a bunch, but I was weighing my options, and that did seem like the one I would take.
It's one of my favorite places because upstairs above the bar and restaurant, they got a cool little bar there, and they have a couple good beers on tap. But upstairs they have the old style rooms where they don't have a bathrooms. There are bathrooms down at the end of the hall.
Oh, community bathroom. Yeah.
Yeah, but those rooms are like $70, or they used to be like $70. They have 2 twin beds in them, so you could say they're pretty cheap.
Yeah,
And
that's not
in the
bad at all.
back of the main building of Bridgeport Hotel, they got the traditional motel, where so they have a variety of
You
different
get your
rooms.
own bathroom.
You get your own bathroom, get your own parking spot, you probably have your own, ice machine.
Yeah.
But so right in Bridgeport, right there is Bridgeport Reservoir,
Okay.
and this would be a great fishery to go. If you like fishing still waters, they pack that thing full with big fish, man. And there's a lot of trophy trout in there. And you could take a float tube out there, probably in the morning before the wind kicks up. You might be able to rent boats up there. So it's a productive fishery, and people pull out some pretty impressive trout out of that river. Then right outside of Bridgeport is Twin Lakes. Have you heard of Twin Lakes?
I've heard of it. Yeah, I've never.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get into Stillwater, man. It's something that I've completely neglected. So
I think maybe next year I might do the Stillwater thing. Diablo Valley offers a Stillwater course that goes on throughout the year. And they
That's
have
cool.
like study sessions and like entomology study
it's just like a progressive kind of class or whatever, though, in a way. Yeah.
Yeah, and they go to different lakes, and they just like have discussions on like how you're going to fish
Cool.
and when you're going to fish it and what hatches to fish. So I might do this. It's called the Stillwater Academy. So I might do that next year. So maybe we could join it together. But anyways, so I think Twin Lakes holds the record for the largest brown trout caught in California. So there's some big trout up there in Twin Lakes. And then you have the West Walker, which sort of the East Walker and West Walker both drain down to Walker Lake. They meet up out in Nevada in a town called, I think it's Yearlington is where they meet up.
Okay.
So the West Walker, have you seen it or fished it?
No, I've been out there. Yeah.
All right. Well, it starts up, you've heard of the Sonora Pass.
Yes.
That's the headwaters, like on the east side of the West Walker, and then it drains through a big canyon, and they stalk the canyon, with stalkers throughout the summer. It's a beautiful, beautiful river. It goes through a big canyon and comes out in Walker Lake, and then it goes through a bunch of private property and then goes to Topaz Lake, sort of drains in. There's a bypass. Some of the water drains into Lake Topaz. So Lake Topaz is another fishery you could fish in around there. And then the East Carson. Have you fished the East Carson?
Nope.
You know where it's at? Markleyville?
Roughly. I'm bad with geography, man.
Yeah.
But I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a cool river. They stock the upper section. There's a scenic and wild section too that they don't stock. A lot of people like to go up there. They stock it pretty heavy. That's in Alpine County. So, those are some fisheries pretty close to Bridgeport.
Plenty of options if you're for some reason not having a good time, or if the flows get crazy or something on the East
Right.
Walker.
Yeah. You never know. And then, I mean, I would guess 120 miles north of Bridgeport or the East Walker would be the Truckee River.
Okay. Yeah. That's same relative zone, right? Yeah. I forget.
Right.
I told you I was bad with geography, man.
It's, the Truckee River system is very similar to the East Walker, just a little bit smaller on the East Walker. They both drain from the Sierras, the east side, down into a lake, into Nevada. So that could be another, alternative. We were fishing, I think maybe it was, I want to say late. You know what? I know exactly when it was. It was the weekend of the fly fishing show in late February this year.
The Pleasanton one. Yeah.
The Pleasanton one. Me and my buddy went up to the East Walker one day. Yeah. And then where did we fish the next day? I think we went over the Truckee River the next day.
It's always smart to fish on the day of the show. I like that move because everybody's at the show.
Yeah, it's a good weekend, but I don't want to let out all my secrets.
No, that's an open secret up here, buddy.
Yeah. The other good secrets are New Year's Day and Super Bowl Sunday.
Super Bowl Sunday, exactly.
Yeah.
Nobody heard that here.
Yeah, that's right.
So, well, man, I feel I need to get up there. Hopefully, I can get out there with you because you seem to know what you're talking about when it comes to East Walker, and I like not going totally blind.
Yeah, I'll take anytime you want to go up there, man. I'll put you on my list to call. And
we'll do it soon, man.
You're right in there in Sacramento. It's right on the way. I go right up 50.
Yeah, man.
Is how I get there, and it's a great place. It's a good time. Good to go up there and pound that water.
Yeah, I wish I could have gone.
Maybe next spring or something, or this coming up fall.
I wish I could have gone over this weekend. Things did not work out.
I ended up just going up there one day. I was up there Friday. I got up there. I slept in Gardnerville at a casino in the back of his casino Friday night, and then rolled into the East Walker. I fished hard all day long, and I waded past my, the water flow was about right around 200, and my waders weren't up all the way in the back, and I waded through the river, and it got pretty deep, and I took on like a little bit too much water, not that much. I mean, a quart, a couple cups
down the back.
It came down the back, because it wasn't up all the way, and my waders got wet, and I was out there all day in the sun, and I was just like, man, I'm burnt out, and I'm just gonna head home. There are a lot of people out there fishing, so I should have stayed because Sunday would have been a lot less people.
Probably, yeah, man.
But the flows came up on Saturday too, so I was just like, I just get home and do my chores and make my wife happy.
I had a Volvo wagon forever that had a leaky sunroof, and so like I would forget about it till the wintertime and it started raining and stuff, and then I'd get in my car and I'd like pull down the back of my driveway, and as the car shifted, all that water that was pooled up in there would go right down the back of my shirt, like on my way to work or something like that.
That's hilarious, right?
Wake up call.
Yep, just right on the way to work when you don't want that happening.
Yeah.
So
you've heard my show, so I got to ask you if you've had any paranormal experiences before we wrap this up. So do you have any weird stories or anything?
Yeah, it's a good question because I feel like I always want to have those experiences, but
some people do, some people don't. I don't know.
Yeah, I was in this stoner rock band for a while, and the drummer was like obsessed. He was a part of the SETI, society.
Oh, yeah. He's into it. Yeah.
Yeah, he was really into it, and to join, if you had different levels of membership, and he got like the super membership where they sent him like this special laser that like was a brighter laser than any other laser that you could buy,
Sounds
legally.
like you got taken advantage of a little bit here.
Yeah. And then they gave him this funky ass tape that had all these like noises like bing, 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 bing.
Oh my God.
Bing, 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 bing.
Come on. Yeah.
And then you're supposed to go out to this dark place, so it's like, come on, well, to sort of like a band building exercise, right? Like
it's the alien whistle that he gave you. Yeah.
So we rolled out to like some BLM land way out there on a work night. And, we were all hanging out there with his laser beam because you're supposed to communicate with them if you see anything, right?
That is a good band outing. I'll give you that.
Yeah. So we went out there and we didn't see anything. And then always, I'm always driving to these fisheries, the McLeod or, the East Walker on a Friday night late after work, after, I'd gone through traffic, I'm always rolling out there 12 o'clock at night, and I always expect to see something dark and spooky. And that's when, it's like, you want to turn the corner and see like a UFO or something, you come around the bend and see something like that or out in the desert. But I was on the East Carson a couple years ago, and we went and hiked down in the scenic and wild section. Me and my buddy about over 3 miles. It was definitely over 3 miles. We hiked pretty far down there. And when we were fishing back, he was on one side of the river and I was on the other side of the river. And I've never really felt this before, but it felt like there was like a presence. And I felt like somebody was watching me. And I could almost see it out of the corner of my eye. And it was like this big, like, it was almost like a big, like structure, not structure, but like being, like a bear or something, or, like Bigfoot, or something. And I kept like sort of seeing it out of the corner of my eyes, and I kept turning around to see what is it, and then I was thinking, like, is it a spirit back there or something, but there was nothing ever back there when I actually looked, but I sure felt something.
Well, this is why I always ask anglers this, because we do go out deep, and that's not an uncommon feeling. Like when it's late, and maybe you're camping, maybe not, but if you're on the river late and you're in a part of wherever you're at, that there's not very many other people out there. Maybe you didn't see anybody else all day long. Yeah, it feels every once in a while you get something like that.
You get out there in the woods, you get disoriented, you're sleep deprived because the night before you spent 8 hours driving out there and had a couple beers, and
all you ate is Cliff Bars all day, whatever. Yeah.
But this is the first time I felt a presence like that.
That's creepy.
Yeah, it was like I kept looking back. I didn't tell my buddy at the time. And then him and I went fishing this weekend. We met up on the East Walker, and I told him. He goes, "You never told me that story."
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, I said it was just sort of bizarre. I didn't know what it was or who it was, but it just was. I felt this strong presence. And then he told me, because there's 2 different ways you could go into the East Carson Canyon there.
Yeah.
And one way you could come down from a dirt airstrip and hike down into the canyon, and the other what you just hike down from the bridge.
Okay.
And he had hiked down from the airstrip, and he said he would never ever do that again. He was down there by himself. You got to hike down in a pretty good canyon. And when he was down there, he said he came across this dude that said he was lost.
Oh no.
And wanted help crossing the river, but he said, I did not trust that guy. There's I got this weird feeling about this guy, like, he was a murderer or something. And we were right in that same exact area.
Or not even a human, some sort of weird skinwalker.
Yeah.
No, that's weird. That's you run into somebody like that in the middle of nowhere.
In the middle of nowhere, and the guy said he was lost and this and that. And then my buddy didn't really know where the trail was up to get back up there, and he was like starting to freak out that there was this weird guy down there. And then then I told him the story how I felt the presence of somebody.
Oh, it was a fucking trap. That's a trap if I've ever heard one, man.
Yeah. We got to go down there.
Yeah, let's go. That's lower on my list now. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
It's like East Walker and then Fall River and East Walker are both sounding real good to me right now. But I've been wanting to get to the East Walker for a long time. I got to do that. And the kayaking on the Fall River sounds amazing. You got to do that.
You've been on my YouTube channel, right?
Yes.
Yeah, Flow Fly Fishing.
Mm-hmm.
I just put out a video on the Fall River from my kayak.
Oh, cool. I'll check it out.
Yeah. I'll send you a link to it.
Please do. Yes.
Yeah. Sweet.
And you got me all stoked up, Todd. I want to get out on the East Walker. And the Fall River hadn't sounded like something I wanted to do till I talked to you either. I mean, I read about it, but it wasn't something like I thought like, oh, I gotta get down there. But now the way you're talking about it, I gotta do it. So.
Dude, watch the video. It's insane. You can catch huge wild trout on streamers and dry flies, and they're just hard to catch, and it's so beautiful. Paddle around. You could lock up your kayak right up to this hitching post at Cal Trout, so we just camp down around the corner. There's town right there. They have bars, restaurants, and, hot coffee in the morning.
That goes a long way. Especially when you're staying at the place that has the bar and the restaurant. It's like, that's all I want.
Yeah. So, hopefully we could get out this year,
Yes, let's do it, man.
Okay, sweet.
I'll be in touch. Thank you, Todd.
Yeah, thank you. Keep up the great work, man. I enjoy the show.
Oh, come on. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Take care, buddy.
Thanks, Matt. Take care. Bye.
Thanks again to Todd for being my guest and for sharing all the info on the East Walker River. What a rad sounding place. You better believe I'll be making the trip out to Bridgeport to apply the things that Todd shared in the real world instead of just letting it all rot here in the digital world. On a side note, I think I might have said "you better believe" at least 3 times in this episode, but I am way too lazy to go back and edit that. You also better believe that I'm going to ask Todd to go with me when I finally go because I forget things. He seems to absorb knowledge and retain it and then continue to apply his smarts to whatever situation he finds himself in while out on the river with a fly rod. I just stomp into the river and start casting usually. Everything I've learned goes right out the window and I just start hucking line and praying a fish will be dumb enough to bite whatever offering I thought looked cool on the end of my leader that day. Thankfully, I'm usually just happy to be there in a place where the normal sounds around me don't make me feel like I'm crazy or an intolerant jerk. Birds are tweeting and probably laughing at me, which is fine because I can't understand them. And the sound of the river is constant and therapeutic, and I'm feeling it just as much as I'm hearing it. My body becomes part of the current and I float downstream, naturally dodging obstacles in front of me without any effort. Isn't that why you go to the river too? Sorry, I got weird there for a minute and just kind of explained what I repeat in my own head while I'm in a sensory deprivation tank or just trying to relax. Thanks for listening, everyone. I've had a lot of fun putting Season 3 together, and there are only a couple more episodes left before I start dreaming up Season 4. Do you have an idea for a future guest? Let me know. I'm going to end this like I have been this season with 2 things that I want to share with you. This time around, both of my suggestions are from past guests. The first one is the Reddington Taco Tour. It's SSFT alumni Mario Guel, I think that's how you say his last name, either Guel or Gel, latest web series in collaboration with the folks at Reddington. I got a big smile when I first saw this was even a thing because I like seeing good people succeed. Here's the official description from their YouTube channel. Join guide and taco aficionado Mario Guel of Taco Fly Co. as he journeys through Montana in search of big trout and the best tacos around. So far there are 5 episodes. Maybe that's all there will be. He hangs out with folks like guide Matt Clara of Big Sky Anglers, Joseph Lena of Frontier Anglers, and more. Give it a watch if you haven't already. Next up is Keep Hurstdale Public. Staying with the theme of SSFT alumni, I'm going to let Gilligan Coles tell you all about the Keep Hurstdale Public initiative because he's a local and knows better than I do.
Hi, my name is Matt Gilligan Coles, Hurstdale resident and longtime fly fishing guide on the Truckee River. Welcome to Hurstdale, California. This is probably one of the most beautiful and iconic spots on the Truckee River, but you may or may not know that most of this land is surrounded by private property up and downstream of the Hurstdale Bridge. Recently, in the last few years, some of this property has changed hands. No trespassing signs have been put up, and the previous landowners have rescinded their access, their permission to access the river. Access that has been here for decades. The new property owners have enforced this through the use of harassment, intimidation, cease and desist letters, and in some cases, firearms. The public has basically stopped coming here, and this is a safety issue. It's a safety issue in the point that public doesn't feel safe because they've heard so many rumors about people being shot at or threatened or intimidated from accessing the river here. The confusion is, how do we access the river and get to the river legally? Hardy Bullet told us we can access the river from all 4 corners of the county bridge here in Hurstdale. How far they own out is something of a vague question. It's supposed to be 60 feet. We don't know if that's from the middle of the road or from the end of the bridge. So we can get to the river, but we don't know exactly where that high water mark is. So the high water mark in California is essentially saying that private landowners cannot own up to the riverbank, right? The river ebbs and flows, there's flooding, there's drought. So there is community access at a certain point. We just don't know where that is here. So we need to get the river surveyed so we know exactly legally where we can and cannot go. What we do know is the Truckee River is a navigable river from Lake Tahoe to the state line. That has been confirmed by California Department of Fish and Wildlife and the California State Land Commission. It has also been confirmed by Nevada County Supervisor Hardy Bullet on a meeting here last August 2023 on the bridge here in Hurstdale, stating that as long as we access the river from a public spot, we can get to the river below the high water mark. So we need to understand where that high water mark is. It can get very high at flood stage here. It's been basically below that bridge, the river at 97, and it's been severely low during the drought of 2015. There is a piece in between there that we need to figure out where it is as a public that we can freely move up and down the river to gain access to the Truckee River. I don't believe it's where landowners have recently put signage to discourage the public from coming here. So there is a Hurstdale recreation plan, and you can go to mynevadacounty.com and look that up. Essentially, they're removing the Hurstdale Bridge and building a new temporary bridge and then putting a new bridge in, and that goes along with the railroad bridge. So the county wants to put in stairs on the east side of the river to get to the river. We also need to understand where people can park and access the river, because again, most of this property around here is all private. I understand these people own this property. They don't want people on their property. And we're not trying to encroach on their property at all. What we want to know is where this gray area is that we can legally access the river. And from there, maybe the intimidation will stop, the harassment, and we can go on about our business and keep fishing around here. So going forward, I think we need to work with the county, Nevada County. I think we need to work with the Department of Fish and Wildlife. I think we need to get signage here, telling people where they can and cannot go. Obviously, that comes from the high water mark being surveyed. We need to understand where the public can park to access the river. And I would just like people to come back here and enjoy Hurstdale, be able to walk their dogs, go rafting, go fishing, be able to enjoy this part of the Truckee River again, because we're just custodians of the river. We don't own it. And I want everybody to be able to enjoy the river.
Sign up for the mailing list at keephurstdalepublic.org. Follow Keep Hurstdale Public on Instagram and keep an eye on this.
This episode of the Secret Society of Fly Tires is brought to you by you, hopefully. Look, I know we have fun with all these advertisements, and I usually say some silly things that make everybody laugh and think I'm cool and handsome, but today I'd like to be a little bit serious for a second. Did you know that you can actually donate to the Secret Society of Fly Tires if you want? You can, and it's easy. The podcast actually has a little website, and if you go to secretsocietyofFlyTires.com, you can send a few bucks our way if you feel so inclined. If you can't or won't, no big deal. We thank you for listening anyway.
I want to sing my theme song. You want to help me?
Go ahead and sing it.
Gotta go fishing when the weather gets right. Fish all day and half of the night. I'm a catfish fishing fool. Caught me a catfish late last night. Gonna clean it up and cook it tonight. I'm a catfish eating fool.